Hey guys, welcome back to Sneaker Impact News. I'm your host Bryan, and today my special guest is Taryn Hipwell. Taryn is a healthy fashion consultant, founder, author, educator, speaker, event producer, and community organizer for Remake. She's a global speaker, passionate healthy fashion consultant. Taryn helps align brands and future designers with best practices in transparency, circularity and sourcing, cleaner fabrics and raw materials. She's the author of How to Shop for Shift, the community organizer for Remake in Florida, and the founder of Beyond the Label, which started as a partnership with TEDx LA to educate locals on the true health, social, and environmental costs of their fashion purchases. Recently, Taryn won Sustainable Expert at the Manna Fashion Awards of 2024. Taryn, welcome. How are you doing?
I am doing amazing. I've been looking forward to this day for a really long time because even before I met Mo and met you, I had heard about Sneaker Impact because when you share with people that you're a sustainable fashion educator, they want to tell you who the cool kids are in the city. So I've only been in Miami for about 4 years.
Oh, wow.
The first two, I felt like I really didn't get a great feel because it was during COVID. So I feel like I've only been here for 2 years. But as soon as I started playing the game, people were like, okay, you need to meet these people. They're one of the people that are great in this city.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go and learn today all about who you are. I want your voice to come through and everything you've learned about fashion and sustainability, I want you to share with the world today. So first, start us off. What is healthy fashion?
Healthy fashion is a term that I created based on the fact that I have hypersensitivities to toxic chemicals in the fashion industry. What that looks like is it could be the dyes, the pesticides, finishing agents, all different types of things, bleaches, and my body just tells me this is not good for you. You should not be wearing this on your skin. So I created the term healthy fashion specifically because that was the place that I was playing in. And I've always told people I'm a humanist before being an environmentalist. I care about how your clothes affect your body before I care about how it affects the environment. However, when you change it to be a healthier fabric and fiber and you know where things are coming from, then you have this opportunity to have a positive effect on the environment. And with that, that's one of the reasons why I'm excited to be here today, because when there are things that are plastic and polyester, I love the idea of being able to create things that may not be worn against the skin, but are made to be used in different ways. So the fact that you have flooring and you have the lower part of a shoe, or like the rubber can be made into certain things, gets me really, really excited.
And different materials from the shoe are used for different purposes, but they can be upcycled. That's awesome. So how do you help brands that you've consulted with?
One of the brands that I'm working with right now, it's a startup. They're based in Pittsburgh. I get really excited because I'm originally from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And they want to create something where it's going to be sustainable, but also they want the edge in gym wear. And I don't want to say too much because,
But it's activewear.
It's activewear. And the fact that what I really love for new designers to do is think about, what is your story? What do you care about? It may not be related to fashion at all. And I've shared with people to, even if they're not sure what their value is or what they care about, to look at the Sustainable Development Goals. And there's 17 different boxes. And if you pick one, there may be some people that want to create a business that's based on women's rights, another one that's sustainable cities, and it's interesting because when I presented it to a class recently at the Florida Fashion Institute, everybody picked a different box, and there was 7 people in the room, and I was so happy because then it proved that everybody's going to have a different business model, and if you play from the place of what you care about the most, you're going to be able to find other people that care about that thing.
I love that. So you give people a lot of options. Brands are, it's really about, the story, like you said. And, I've worked for a couple startup brands, and Sneaker Impact, we have a special story. So I know we would probably check different boxes than someone that creates apparel. And speaking of apparel, here I am wearing polyester, and I've heard that it breaks down in the laundry machines and can shed microplastics. And we were talking about that yesterday with Kelly from Perg, that you can install a filter on your washing machine. But tell us a little bit about the different materials and that you work with.
Well, the conversation of microfibers, I began my education with that with the Five Dryers Institute, and that was about 10 years ago. And amazingly, Anna Cummings was in town. She partnered with Debris Free Ocean recently in Miami, and they're even opening up the conversation of microfibers from clothes that are in the oceans. And for me, I started thinking about, okay, if it's in the oceans and then people are eating fish and it's on the fish and it's in the fish, then what is it like if the human body has these microfibers against it? Mm-hmm. And there's now finally scientific evidence in medical research that is verified that shows that there's plastic, like PFAS, so forever plastics, that can remain in your body from just wearing things against your skin. And I had been talking about this for the longest time, but there wasn't a lot of research and like specific facts. And so there's a book called To Die For, D-Y-E, by Alden Wicker. And I appreciated the fact that she did deep dive into finding out where things are made, how they're made, how they affect the human body. And it even, I guess, verified some of the things that I had been talking about, but I had to be honest with people that there wasn't proof, and now there is. So it's a very new conversation to many people. However, I've been talking about it for about 15 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe we should take a rewind and talk about, how did you get started in fashion? Where did you grow up? Have you always been into fashion since you were a little girl? Was this your initial dream to become a fashion consultant for sustainable fashion, or what? So where did you grew up in Pittsburgh?
Yeah. Okay. I was born in Colorado Springs, which I feel like maybe some ounce of my being and my sustainability love probably comes from there, because I'm a little more nerdy about sustainability than the rest of my family. In Pittsburgh, I share with people, we grew up bougie redneck, which means I played in the dirt and I also cleaned up real nice.
Okay.
And so I went back and forth between really loving nature, but also enjoying feeling sparkly and dressing up, especially for like Easter, like the gloves, the hat, the everything. And when I was about 12 years old, I got a D on my report card. My parents had a rule that if you got a D, you were grounded for the next 9 weeks. And I happened to get mine right at the beginning of summer vacation. Oh, no. And so I asked my mom if she would put her sewing machine in my room. My sisters are twins. I took their duplicates, started chopping them up, and I've been upcycling since I was about 12.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So, like, my journey with going back and forth between educating brands to do things more sustainably, because I would like to see more fiber and fabric in the clothing to be natural and biodegradable. And then with upcycling, I still want to keep as many things out of the waste stream as possible. So whatever we do have now that exists, to be able to make it into other products. And so I teach upcycling, and I've been teaching upcycling for about 15 years now. Wow. Also.
That's incredible.
But when I went to college, I went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago.
Okay. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Madison, so it's nearby.
Yeah.
So you went to the Art Institute of Chicago.
Yes.
Wow.
And it was great because I had looked at, I'll take a tiny step back. My dad said no New York and no California. So even at that time, it was between Chicago and Miami. I ended up going to school in Chicago, and then I moved to New York for my first fashion job, where I had hypersensitivities to a lot of the fabrics, and I had different sensitivities to different fabrics. So then by the time I made my way to Los Angeles, which I ended up hitting all 4 of the cities.
The no-go places.
Yeah, and then when I was in Los Angeles, I was able to be part of the beginning stages of what sustainable fashion is. So there were a few people that we were outspoken. I was doing my best to connect silly, sassy, and sexy.
Okay. Is that a brand?
No, that was
was a
concept.
It's a vibe.
Yeah, a vibe. Because at that time, like when you say granola eater,
Yeah, I was gonna say granola earlier when you
Yeah.
said bougie redneck. Yeah.
But when you say granola eater to somebody that's
Or herbal
younger,
gerbil,
they
yeah.
might not even know what that means.
No,
But
I do, but
back then, it was like you were either a granola eater or you were a silly, sassy, sexy. And I was like, I want both. I want silly,
wow.
sassy, sexy, and sustainable.
Okay.
And I created something called Eco Divas.
Okay.
And with that, even getting to ask people, I had created a webisode series before there was even real webisodes in
wow.
existence.
Yeah.
And getting to ask people, like, what does the word eco divas mean to you? And I loved watching people's faces and absorbing like the idea of those
Sure.
two things being pushed together. And that led me to TEDxLA. So TEDxLA plus Eco Divas became Beyond the Label, and I went from very female specific, and the tagline for that was hugging trees in heels.
Okay, I like it. Yeah. Again, combining the two different worlds.
Yeah.
You don't have to be in just one.
Exactly. And then when we partnered with TEDxLA, I wanted to make it gender neutral, so it became Beyond the Label.
Okay.
And
I like that.
Yeah.
It's like reading your labels. I used to work for a nutrition company. We had a hashtag read your labels because what you put in and on your body matters. So this is the same thing, what you're putting on your body. I mean, we're going to talk about some of these sensitivities, but so you created Beyond the Label as one of your first brands.
And I had the opportunity to work with Vector Apparel, which is also LA Relaxed, and they helped me to create a nutrition label t-shirt. And we took a hybrid of a nutrition label and a label from a shirt and put them together and put, these are the good things, these are the bad things.
Was it on the front or was it
on the front, very big. And then we got notes from UCLA students that maybe you should put it on the back. So then when students are sitting in class, then whoever's sitting behind them will actually read the label on the back of the shirt.
Yeah, and it's on the back of a package too.
Yeah, or like when you're standing in line at the grocery store.
That's a really good point.
Right? And then from there, we created a guidebook called How to Shop for Shift.
Yep.
And there's a parentheses around the F, and it says why, because we give a F. And I love playing in that silly space where the conversations in sustainable fashion are so heavy, but being able to find ways to find the comedy in the dark side and to be able to present information to people in a way that you can basically have a conversation and play with them exactly where they're at. That's also why when I got to Miami, I started to realize in Los Angeles, speaking openly about sustainability is second nature. Everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid. We're all like on that level. In the state of Florida, not specifically Miami, because I'm definitely finding my tribe, some people just are not interested.
But the reputation for California is that that's where all the laws are for protecting the air, whether it's you get your car tested every year for exhaust. That's where everyone bought the Prius and the Teslas and the, and I'm an EV driver now, but I just got one recently. But in Florida, we have the reputation of, sun and, kind of vacations and tourism and stuff, but it's not known to be as progressive as California. So, but we're getting there now. With Zero Waste Miami, debris-free oceans, all these great groups now that are just really turning the page on that old chapter.
Yeah.
New people are moving here too all the time, like yourself.
Yeah. Well, I migrated here right before COVID, and then I've had like 3 or 4 friends move to the state of Florida after I got here. And some of them are from New York, some are from LA. I even had like a friend come down from Chicago. And I've also seen people leave and go back to their like original homes too. And so it's a really unique time right now because the conversation is getting bigger and is catching up to me to where New York and LA have been playing. And I do my best to introduce people to concepts, especially so since I've been here, I really wanted people to start thinking about the EU and their digital passport laws. And I've been talking about this for the whole 4 years that I've been in the state. And I shared with people that transparency is key. Brands are going to be expected to basically catalog everything in their brand and have it in a way that it can be presented for a shopper to be able to make an educated purchase.
Where it's sourced, where it's produced.
Yeah, and I shared with people, I'm like, okay, if this is happening right now and it's put into law and you're going to see it go to Los Angeles next and New York, and then I really wanted to get it here. I want to kind of skip some steps and like just get us up to par with the conversation. And it's happening because now there's a voluntary traceability act that is happening in Los Angeles, and now it's like coming to fruition. And so brands that are being started in Miami, if they do want to sell to Europe, if they do want to sell to California, they're going to need to know these laws. And it's easier to start a business from the cleanest, most transparent place possible than it is to just get it started and do it any way you can and then have to change it later because you've already took all the time to find your fabrics and to find your producers, and maybe you have a full service and they're kind of skimping on things and don't have information or background about certain
When you're
parts.
starting a business, sometimes you're just trying to get that bottom line as low as possible, or as, your profit margins up. But I know that, nutrition companies, it's all these trends are that, everyone's, talking about sustainability because that's what the public is demanding more and more. So the digital passport from the EU, that's all about traceability.
Traceability from the ground up. Like
They want to know everything about the product.
Yep.
So they won't allow GMOs, and they don't want to allow dirty fashion in either, probably.
They are doing their best to combat fast fashion, as well as even luxury brands that are doing things that are unethical.
Okay. So no more of this using child labor and
Nope.
getting away with it.
Correct.
Okay. I love it. So in LA, TEDx, were you a speaker there?
I was. So
Okay.
with TEDx, I had my own night where I did a TEDx speech, and it was great. I was grateful to be able to have a chance to really open up the conversation of what your fabric is made of, and to get people to think of sourcing in a way that is by ingredients. And I have to say, one of the fun things for me was when I started Eco Divas, we launched at the Sundance Film Festival. And one of the brands that we were able to take up there is called Groceries Apparel. And even on their website, again, 15 years ago, they were putting their listing of their sources of the different fibers for each of their shirts as the ingredients. And so that was the first time I had that conversation. So
It's
when
like the dyes and the
like the dyes, and they were doing so well during COVID that they opened up a second floor in the building that they had their production, and it's all vegetable dyes. So they do pomegranates and carrots and avocado pits.
What's the name of that brand again?
Groceries Apparel.
Groceries Apparel. Interesting. That's a California brand?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I'm wearing the sandals from a California brand called Flex, and they're made out of recycled recycled foam and rubber. That's post-consumer, and we're working with them at Sneaker Impact too. So that's really cool. So
love
TEDx was a big opportunity for you to share your message. And you're an educator, you're a speaker, author. When did your book come out? How to Shop for Shift.
I believe the book came out about 7 years ago, and I have a few people encouraging me to write a follow-up to it. That was my love letter to designers, but I wrote it in a way for shoppers to really take on being able to think differently about how they shop.
Okay.
And I do feel like a sourcing guide is something that is much needed, because there are a lot of people that are confused about how to know if things are as clean as they say that they are.
It takes a lot of research. I mean, that's why people watch like YouTube videos and stuff to get, like, I'm wearing some Lululemon pants right now and they feel great, but I don't know where they came from. I just have to trust Lululemon, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And sometimes people fall in love with a brand, and I have no shade to Lululemon. I think they're great. But, I don't know if it's organic, and I get itchy sometimes from my clothing, and I'm sure that has to do with some of the chemicals. I do have a little bit of organic clothing and a little bit of hemp and a little bit of bamboo, but like 1 or 2 articles of clothing, it's like, it's not as easy to find, in stores. It seems like, you have to source it, or you have to look a little deeper, or find these brands. Like, it might not be the cheapest either, but it might be higher quality, right? Or it could be longer lasting, or it could just be better for the earth. And we have to think about these things versus just the price or the feel or the name brand. you know, like some people are all about Gucci or whatever they love, you know what I mean? Like Nike or whatever, you know, so. But what do you think about brand loyalty and brand loyalists versus like being more, you know, considerate of your health and the planet?
It's a very, very interesting question. I almost feel like I know I'm not the norm, but I am a brand loyalist when it comes to fiber science companies. So once I start to do my research about a fiber that I don't have a allergic reaction to, then I reach out to them to find out what brands they're selling their fibers to. And sometimes there's a second question that could be, how are they processing their fabric to see if the fabric is also being dyed in a way that's more sustainable. So when I also work with brands, getting them to even reach out to a fiber science company and maybe to ask questions may not be that easy. That's why I think it's more fun to work with myself, because I'll know like which questions to ask, where to figure out like where different manufacturers of certain kinds of fiber and fabric are located.
Okay.
And when it comes to being a brand loyalist, like I'll share with anybody, there's a brand Reformation, and I know that they got their start from secondhand fabric, and then they started integrating sustainable fibers and fabrics, and now they're to the point where they're creating their own fibers and fabrics. Oh, wow. And I trust them on different levels because I have had the conversations with the people that are doing the sourcing, and I understand that when they come up with a problem, because they did end up deciding to use leather versus a faux leather for the longest time because they just couldn't find a good quality faux leather.
Yeah, no, Tesla uses faux leather.
Yeah, and I believe they're currently in production to create their own with a fiber science company that's hitting all the marks. Yeah.
Cool.
And they're working with multiple canopy. They're working with multiple canopy certified wood fiber fabric companies too. And so once you're like myself, when I'm in the sustainable fashion bubble, we're aware that there are a lot of lanes, and similar to food where you might have the nut allergy aisle, and then you have the gluten-free aisle and the soy-free aisle and the nut, like all of the different free or issues. Fashion is similar to that too, because there's different certifications or audits for recycled plastic and polyester versus recycled blend versus cotton versus different
dye-free
plant,
or whatever.
Yeah, or like tree
or vegetable
versus
dye versus artificial dyes.
Yeah.
Is it how it's also grown, or is it more the processing? Because like I know that when you grow certain, like I'm gonna get this wrong. I know that polyester is not made from a plant, but
no, it's
cotton
made
is
from petroleum.
Yeah. But cotton is made from a plant.
Cotton is made from the cotton plant, and then there's there's multiple ways to grow it. If you're going for the most clean, there's regenerative and organic, and then
So the chemicals used in growing up these plants could cause the sensitivities?
Yes.
But it could also be the processing, I'm sure.
Yes, and I never even knew that there were synthetic pesticides until recently, and that
like
actually...
Roundup or that's an herbicide, but like things that prevent like bugs and stuff, and disease.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're spraying stuff on that carries along through the supply cycle. And do you create videos online about this, or how do you you're writing a lot, and I know you're going to start. We were talking off camera about your interest in creating your own podcast to share a lot of this knowledge.
Yeah, I have been talking about all of these things for about 14, 15 years, and most recently I've been more teaching and speaking, and I started doing some Teacher Taryn videos on Instagram. I want to get back to that, but I'm starting to realize doing a podcast and being able to create a course that's a basic course for people that do want to start as clean as possible, so that they don't have to make a lot of pivots as they're building their brand. They can learn about the different technologies that exist that are either the digital passport or something that's going to help with transparency, depending on the size of their company. There's different ones to work with. And then also, being able to source as clean as possible.
How do we get the price down? How can consumers afford to wear clothing that is healthy for them and the planet? Because sometimes, organic is more expensive in most cases than, I'm going to pick on the Gap.
Right.
Although I know they're doing a lot. I know they take back clothing and recycle clothing that you don't want and give you. So. But how do we get the cost to be something that people don't object to, or is that always going to be a more higher price point for more of a, allergen-free item?
Well, if you're somebody that shops fast fashion and you really are looking for like a $5 or $10 item, my first suggestion is look for natural fibers in the secondhand market.
Okay.
And if you
go to a thrift store or somewhere like Mids Market down the street?
Yeah, Mids is amazing. And just assessing visually, 80% of what they have in there is cotton. So they have a lot of denim, sweatshirts, button-up shirts, things like that. So I get really excited when I'm in a place that has.
But in Miami, it's like the dry fit feels good. The runners are used to the the Nike and Brooks and Adidas dry fit. This is Adidas, but it's not good if it's shedding into the water. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I guess is right. It's shedding, and it's also not good for my skin.
Right.
And I didn't even know that. Like, here I am eating so healthy, and I just recently in the last year learned that polyester is full of microplastics.
Yep. It is microplastics. I mean, that's all that it is. And it's even interesting sharing with people for the first time sometimes that it's made of petroleum. Like, they just don't even know
100% basically.
Yeah.
And with some other small, I'm sure, ingredients in there like dyes and stuff. But the dyes, what are they made out of? If they're not organic or plant-based, are they made out of just, chemicals or that people are
Yeah, it's
labs
interesting because most
stuff?
dyes are made of chemicals in general, but it's just
like paints or?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what is the.
I'm thinking like acrylic paints. Like, how did they get the sneaker impact down here?
Yes. Okay. So we can
that's a
answer
screen
this
print, of course,
in different ways. When I also did the nutrition label tea, I got to work with, the brand is now called Yes And, but it was the brand that they had right before that. And they had seaweed printing for the actual nutrition label to be printed onto a white T-shirt. And that was pretty amazing to see that it is possible.
Seaweed. And you can turn it into any color.
Yeah.
Wow.
And even in the city.
And it lasts.
Yeah. And in Miami, we have fiber science companies. There's a bacteria-based dye that is called Tinte. Mm-hmm. And there's up in Orlando another company that helps to adhere natural dyes and dyes onto fiber called Source. So we have things coming out of the state of Florida that are playing at a higher level in the space of sustainable fashion.
Is this recent? This is pretty
recent to me,
yeah.
But that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
I've only been here for 4 years in Miami, and the last 2 years is when I started meeting people.
Scene has just blown up here because I interviewed Martu Freeman.
Oh, she's awesome.
I saw you in a photo with her talking, you and Mo and our founder and Martu.
Yep.
She's one of our fashion experts.
Yep.
And she told me that she moved down here from New York.
Yep.
To help build the Mana fashion brand and her own brand, and that I remember I moved here in 2008 and the scene was totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different. 2007, 2008, and it wasn't like Miami Beach was, it was different than it was in the 90s, but it was nothing like it is today.
Right.
Definitely COVID changed everything. We got a massive influx of new intellectual, firepower.
Yep.
But I've just seen the sustainability movement grow tremendously in the last 10 years since about 2015. Which is exciting because, people always think that Miami's this big club that you just go to party and there's the worst connotations of drug and alcohol use or just disrespect for, consideration for the environment.
Right.
But there's so many people, I always tell them, you need to find your community anywhere you are. I'm a runner and I'm also into other healthy things like gardening. And there's plenty of people down here gardening I can hang out with, and there's plenty of runners everywhere. We have a huge running scene. But that doesn't get the attention of the media. The media sees all the money, they see all the, yachts and all the, the billions, that are coming in from like the people like Ken Griffin and Jeff Bezos and, all these, the richest people in the world, are living down here. So it obscures the spotlight on sustainability. So I love that, all these groups now are starting to really, I met you, I didn't meet you, I met you at Reuse-a-Palooza. Mm-hmm. That's, I think, where I first met you, was at the Things Lab.
Yes.
Shout out to Susan and her partner. And I met you there. You were helping run the Reuse-a-Palooza event. Mm-hmm. And then I saw you last week at the Psychedelics for Climate Action conference, which our dear friend Marissa, who you've known for a long time.
A long time. I mean, it's amazing. As you're kind of sharing all of the different places, I mean, I love Susan and the fact that she really is making the sustainable part of upcycling, reworking, redoing things more accessible. And then with Marissa, it was great because she actually gave me one of my first speaking opportunities. Oh, wow. And I think it was called Beer and Bags, and it was to teach people at her Impact Hub at the time, the one that she was running.
In New York, right?
In New York, yeah. How to upcycle a T-shirt into a tote bag.
Oh, wow. Right. I would love to do that.
Right?
I've got a lot of T-shirts that I want to. So do you need a sewing machine for that, or you can just do it with...
I can teach it both ways. So if I'm told that you're not, like, there is no sewing machines, then I teach people how to hand sew. And it's really great because even this summer I got to work with Girls Inc. and had 2nd through 5th graders hand sewing and teaching them how to do a whip stitch and a running stitch. And then at the very end, having them wanted to teach their parents how to do it.
Wow.
That was like one of those moments where my heart was just so happy.
Well, I can see how much you light up talking about sewing. So I have to ask the question, is this more like 99% women and 1% men, or because I'm interested and I want to take the class, but I'm like the only guy in my Pilates class at shout out to Pilathon down the street, but I've gone there for a couple months straight now. I haven't seen a single guy in there but me. It's all women. Is it the same way in the sewing industry and in the fashion industry, or are there some men that are trailblazers? Well,
it depends, because there are certain groups that I am brought in to teach an upcycling workshop, and so with Girls Inc., specifically girls, with Marangoni, it was summer camp, so it was students from all around the world. Typically, there would be about 2 to 3 boys per 10 or 12 girls.
Okay.
So
heavily skewed towards women, but that's probably to be expected in the fashion industry.
But when I got to work with the Children's Fund, it was half and half. And I always get so super excited when young men sit behind a sewing machine, because when I set up that particular one, I was like, okay, I'm going to teach everybody the hand sewing, but if you're feeling ambitious and you want to try to get behind the sewing machine, and I have this really great assistant, Val, that was helping me, and they all wanted to sew their own pieces. They wanted to see what it felt like to be behind the machine, and that was the coolest. So I get, really, really excited about that.
I want to find like the little sewing machine that's like, more, I know my older brother, he has like the antique ones that were passed down from my grandma,
one of those.
And those like from, the 50s and 40s, but which, I think I have a friend that is like my friend, shout out to Kevin in Hollywood. He's got a clothing brand, and he's got like 7 sewing machines, and he does it out of his van, and he sews all this stuff for all these festivals, and he's super, of the earth as well. So there are guys out there doing it.
Yes, there are. And Groceries Apparel is 2 male founders. One of my favorite humans in the whole world is Adam from Triarchy Denim.
Okay.
He and his siblings started a brand that is sustainable denim, and they even, again, this is one of those things where early on he stopped his entire business model. I shared with him as many pieces of information about sustainable denim as I could possibly put in front of him. He ran with it, created his own story about reducing water, and now is working with Candiani, which is one of the top fiber companies in Italy, to produce their own biodegradable denim that they use to compost and grow tomatoes with.
Whoa.
And then had a dinner to eat the tomato sauce.
Whoa.
Yeah. So.
And I'm a big gardener. I've got my own compost tumbler, and I've got a compost pile. I've got my raised gardens, and I'm learning more and more. You can use cardboard in there, but you got to remove the the tape and the labels and everything. But that's good for the bottom parts and leaves. But I didn't know you could compost denim. Is it a special kind of denim, or is it all denim?
Not all denim, because most denim does have stretch in it. The reason why theirs is compostable is it's the first plastic-free stretch denim.
So does it have to say 100% denim? You got to look at the label?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it has a certain amount of
But you have to
Lycra.
remove like the metal and the zipper and stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And I also have a friend up in Tampa, Erica, that I love the fact that she took on biodegrading underwear just so she could show people what it looks like with the polyester strings in it and the like band. Like the only thing that was left was like the band and the elastic around the legs. Yeah.
Wow. These are all great concepts. I mean, I've never even thought about biodegradable underwear. You also had a really good idea for Sneaker Impact. So, but let's talk about, before we get into a couple of other topics, how did you learn about Sneaker Impact and meet Mo Hachem, our founder? Because I think you met him before you met me.
The first time we met in person was I had put together the panel at St. Thomas University, and Mo was somebody I had, again, was told was one of the cool kids. You need to play with this person. And then I had Martu, and Ashley is the person that runs the department, the fashion department at St. Thomas University. And my friend Sarah Phillips was in town. She's also a Remake. At the time, we were co-community organizers for the Remake organization, and she also works for Better Cotton. And what was great is you have somebody in the recycle side, the circularity part of it, which was Mo. You have Martu, who has been in all aspects.
She worked for some of the biggest brands in the world.
Yeah.
Polo, Ralph Lauren. I mean, she worked personally with him and many big fashion brands in New York City. I was so like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like she was on the floor, like she started like, as an intern and worked her way up. And it's just so incredible of a story. Now she's teaching it just like you.
Yep.
So you guys are like peas in a pod. And you were on the stage with Mo,
And Mo,
our founder.
yeah.
Was that at St. Thomas?
St. Thomas University.
For a fashion talk to the students?
Yeah.
And then you guys had a fashion show, I know, too, based on sustainability, right? Because I remember, I know we had like we made like some swimwear or something out of our grinded.
That might be something that you
St.
did
Thomas.
separately, but that particular event, there was a screening of a film. Oh, this is going to break my heart because I can't remember the name of the film. I'll try to remember so I can share it with you later. But yeah, there was a screening about a student. They followed her journey of winning some sustainability prizes and what she was putting the money towards, her trials and tribulations of trying her best to have a brand that was ethical, sustainable, as clean as possible, all the things. And the trials and tribulations are heartbreaking because it seems like it should be an easy process, but it really wasn't. And then being a new designer, one of the things that I've heard in the city of Miami that sometimes happens, and it's kind of a good problem, but because more of the brands that are medium size are looking for more local production of fiber and
Yes,
fabric.
they're looking for local.
Yeah.
Versus that's what Martu was saying too. It's hard to source. It used to be harder to source things locally.
Right.
You'd have to get it from farther areas of the U.S. or other countries.
Yeah, so now that the medium brands are being able to get more fabric, a little more local, it squeezes out the smaller like brands or the startups. So it's like I said, a good problem to have, to know that the medium-sized brands that do have more production. So I would love to encourage more manufacturers to come and set up shop in Miami because there is such a desire to do differently. There's just a difficulty in finding things that are cleaner and better.
I think that's a good transition to Mana Fashion.
Yeah.
Martu told us a little bit about them, and you can tell us some more, but you won an award from them last year as a sustainability expert?
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
I was grateful to be nominated because there are two really, really incredible women that I was nominated aside, and one of them is Gabriella Smith, and she has been doing upcycling with the city of Miami and students at Miami-Dade College and different organizations for years. Even during COVID, I got to go to an event that she was putting on, and I feel like that was one of my very first times getting to see what Miami was doing. And then there was another woman, Jacqueline, who works for Waste Management, and I'd heard about her, but I hadn't actually met her. And I had it in my space. I'm like, okay, I'm still the new girl here, and I'm nominated with these two incredible powerhouses, And when they said my name, I literally
Wow.
almost fell out of my seat because I just didn't expect
Yeah.
it at all.
Yeah.
And
You were new here.
yeah, and it makes me grateful because I know that there are things that I'm sharing from a place of having been talking about it for a long time
Sure.
and doing
In
my
LA,
best.
a bunch, and in New York City, these are big
Yeah.
hotspots.
But both of them are up to big things
Yeah.
and really shifting the community, and I've seen what they've done. And I should actually mention, I've only been here for 4 years, but I've known about the sustainable fashion space in the city of Miami for about 7 or 8 years. So when I did a
Is that why you moved here?
Part of it.
Yeah, we didn't ask you why you moved here.
I can kind of dive into that a little bit. But 7 years ago when I did the How to Shop for Shift, the first version, didn't include Miami. I started making friends with a woman, Colleen, who was the point person for Miami for an organization called Fashion Revolution.
Okay.
And I actually decided to move to Miami during COVID because I was thinking about going back to Los Angeles, and she's like, no, just come down here. We have things for you to do. And I'm grateful that she encouraged me to come down because I did sneak Miami into the second version of my book 7 years ago. So there was a version that was created 8 years ago, and then we did an update, and then I snuck Miami into it, and it was to show Fashion Revolution events in Miami, New York, and LA.
Wow. Is this available online as an ebook or also in print?
It is. It's an ebook. It's on Amazon, and it's called How to Shop for Shift, and you have to put the parentheses around the F.
We're going to put it in the description. I already have it in, but yeah, there's a parentheses around the F.
Yeah.
So is that a play on words?
It is, yeah. Why? Because we give an F.
How to shop for
shifts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the
shifting like consciousness or shifting values, shifting
Yes.
consumer decision making.
Yep.
Not the SHIT.
Well, the reason why that became the title, I had a friend and she could tell that I was a little frustrated trying to come up with a name for it. She's like, literally, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And I was like, I just want to teach people how to shop for shit. And she was like, okay, so that's your title. And then I was driving cross country, and when I realized that, like, if I shoved a little F in there and it was shift, then it was the positive version and not like shit and shitty shit. It was like the good
so
shit,
important.
which is shifting the shit
our
out
brains
of the system. Yeah. I just said shit like 18 times.
That's all right. It's YouTube. I think we can swear on YouTube, but we either have to mark for kids or not for kids. So I might have to say, yes, it's for kids. Because,
Beep it. I would rather like the younger generation get to hear me.
Yeah.
And yeah, with that, it was just, a play on words. It was just using humor to get people to think a little bit differently about how they shop.
And again, you're lightening up the conversation because it can get heavy, like people often advise me not to get too preachy about, the environment. Although I do have 3 degrees in environmental science and 20 plus years of experience. So like you, I'm an expert, but I also want to be humble because I'm learning every day.
Yeah.
Every day. But every person I talk to, we all have different backgrounds.
Yep.
You talk to me about botany or about running, and I'm definitely an expert, but you talk to me about fashion and I don't know about sustainability. I defer to you. So, this is really important. We want you to be one of our fashion consultants and experts. I want to read the book. So we'll definitely include a link to the Amazon so people can check it out. Anything more about how to shop for Shift, or do we want to move to Remake?
Well, the one thing I'll say about the book, it was ahead of its time with a lot of the information. So a lot of it still lands very well today. However, with COVID, there were brands that didn't make it through. There are other brands that are now thriving.
Okay.
And so when you're reading it, I do list several brands that are no longer in existence, a few organizations that are no longer in existence, and there are new brands and organizations in place of them that have just come up in the last couple of months or years.
Sure.
And then when it comes to the Remake organization, I shifted from Beyond the Label, which was my baby, to become a community organizer for Remake because I noticed that Remake was having a bigger conversation on climate action and worker rights. And I also believe that part of worker rights, and in addition to how they're paid and how they're treated, is also what they're exposed to. And their goal is to, bring to light how workers are treated, who's not getting paid, how they're being exploited.
Their workplace environment,
Yeah, and
safety.
yeah, and I felt that it made more sense for me to be a part of an organization that was wanting to grow legs in Miami.
Is Remake a fashion brand, or is it a collective of experts like yourself, or what is it exactly? Because I don't know anything about Remake.
The interesting thing is they're switching their language in the very near future, and they had in the past called they would call people ambassadors.
Okay.
And they're going to be shifting that to change makers. And me as a community organizer, I share with people sometimes, I feel like I'm kind of the mom of the group, where multiple different people may want to do different events in the city of Miami or Orlando or over in Tampa, and I do my best to help foster community so that they can have volunteers to be able to put on the event, to find ways for us to partner with organizations that are doing events and activations in the city of Miami so that we can have a bigger conversation. And it's been great getting to see, there's my friend Tina. She has Recircle Society, and she is the sustainability lead at Perry Ellis. And she's taking on having more clothing swaps and introducing more people to upcycle artists. And that's how we met. There were two parts of me being at Reusapalooza, which was I do the upcycle workshops with Susan for the Things Lab, and I was also there as part of Recircle Society and Remake to educate people both about the climate justice and worker rights, as well as sustainability.
Social good. Yeah. Are they a nonprofit then, or are they
Yes.
for-profit? Okay, nonprofit. Excellent. Yeah. And we're a social enterprise, but there's a slight difference. We're not a nonprofit, but you can be a for-profit social enterprise and still do good. Or you can, it just depends on how you want to structure yourself. So that's really cool. You've been involved in so many organizations. I mean, this is incredible. Circularity, that's a big topic that we care about at Sneaker Impact. I know you have some materials here you brought in from our lab.
Yeah.
You want to share some of them and talk about how some creative ideas you have and what you and Mo have been talking about?
It's really great to see what Sneaker Impact is doing, and the fact that they're able to separate the different parts of the shoe into different pieces. And about 14 years ago, I had shared about Nike Grind because they were able to separate things. And then when I found out you guys are taking this to different levels, you're able to separate the pieces in a way that you can create flooring and you can create. I love that this has the feel of a shelf. Like you pick it up and it just has
a
weight
countertop
to it.
It could be a shelf. It could be a chair.
Yeah.
We also are really care about purity levels. We send it off to labs after it goes through an intense amount of processing. I mean, first it's grinded, air separation, nitrogen gas. I'm giving away secrets here left and right. Mo's like, Bryan. But it's top secret. I mean, we don't even have photographs of what we're doing here yet, but we're going to have a documentary. But they're separating it, and they're getting it to a purity level of over 99% purity so that it can be used for post-consumer products.
Yes.
Like sandals and yoga mats and floors, and also shelves, and even eventually shoes, clothing. You had a really good idea that I liked. I don't want to steal your thunder.
I know. I'm going to plug this because I would love to will this into existence. So you were sharing the upper, and it's called fluff. And I didn't actually know what the term
The top of your shoe is called the upper versus the bottom, which is the midsole and outsole.
Yeah. And so I was asking, what were you guys planning on making this out of? Because I have seen this turned into carpet padding by another organization based in LA. But I know I would like to see more luggage be made from the circularity of shoe parts and just fiber and
other
fabric.
Apparel too. We get a lot of apparel that we can't give a second life to. Most of it does get a second life. We collect apparel and shoes.
Yeah.
And give them a second life in developing countries where people are creating businesses out of them. But some of the fabrics are beyond repair, and some of the shoes are. So those go into our grinding program, and
Nice.
you're holding 6 millimeter fluff of like, it's fabrics on the top of the shoe. So that could be made into so many things, but I never thought about luggage.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I have
yeah.
luggage by a company called Timbuk2, and they do recycled plastic bottle fabric. So when people ask me my thoughts on recycled plastic bottle fabric, I still would prefer it not to be
yeah, what do you
worn
think
on
about
the
that?
skin.
I've heard they make shirts out of.
Yeah, I would prefer not to have
Okay.
it be worn against the skin, but I definitely think that bags and even clothing items that may not be against the skin, so rain
purse.
jackets or purses, accessories, yeah, I prefer those types of things. But I love the fact that you guys have the fluff. You can see it, it's tangible. It does look similar to what a fluff or a recycled fiber fabric would look like. And I just feel like there's so much story in this. I remember the first time I ever saw fluff that was made into a carpet padding and seeing tiny little gold flecks. And in my brain, I created this story that there was some older woman with the gold like muumuu and
Like Rapunzel or whatever. Yeah.
or something. Yeah. And
She was using gold thread for
yeah,
her
exactly.
something.
Like, yeah, just getting to like make stuff up about it. And I think it would be so amazing.
So
to
many
see
ideas. I mean,
luggage.
that's why we need
Yeah.
new, fresh perspectives all the time, and we need creative people like yourself to help guide us, because it's kind of a couple dudes around here, like thinking about sandals and, running shoes and stuff. But we're doing a lot of education just like you. I mean, that's what it's all about. And, I really encourage you to do a podcast, because I think you have so much to share.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate
And you're not shy
that.
like me, so
No,
you can't
I'm
be
not.
shy to have a podcast.
No.
So, creative upcycling ideas. I love it. Why, again, is transparency important? Because we care about that here. We promise all of our partners that all the shoes leave the U.S. so that they don't come back to haunt the running stores. So shoes that can live a second life all leave the U.S. to go to Haiti, Honduras, Guatemala, South America, even Africa and other countries around the globe, even a little bit to Asia. We ship to 20 plus countries. All the shoes leave the U.S. that have a
Right.
second life. The brand new shoes especially, but all the shoes. Nothing can be sold online. So everything leaves the U.S. Nothing can be sold online, because we don't want it to haunt our partners, to come back and haunt them.
Right.
If we're getting some whatever overproduced item, that they couldn't sell, we're going to get it to Guatemala where people need it. And that's not going to be sold online. And if it were sold online there, it would cost too much for someone to ship it back here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Import it back in. Like, we export it, and then the costs for a merchant to try to sell it on eBay wouldn't make any sense. But our promises are that we will not sell our products online, that the shoes that we receive or clothing, and that we also will not throw stuff in the landfill as much as we can control it. Like, nothing goes in the landfill. If anything, we were using it to create energy, waste to energy, but that was just our first step. And the second step now is creating products, post-consumer recycled materials into flooring, yoga mats. You saw some of the stuff we're up to. But that's transparency. So, can you give us some more examples of transparency, and how do you really sniff out whether a company really is, telling the truth or just telling a story? You just have to ask a lot of questions. You got to probe around. You got to email. You got to send some DMs, or what do you do? How do you get the attention of the right person? It's a lot of work. Who do you trust?
The easy cheat is there's a site called Good On You, and they do a lot of the research, legwork, go into the sites, and they base their assessment on what you post on your website. So if you are not being fully transparent publicly, then they'll let you know that these are the places where you're weak, and you should think about doing things.
You need to tell people where you produce the products,
Yep.
where the
Where,
manufacturing
how,
plant is,
who, if you have different types of certifications, and
just like in nutrition, vegan, or
Yep.
fair trade for coffee and chocolate.
Yep. Yeah, and I appreciate them because they started in Australia and now are global, and they do a lot
Good
with
on you.
US. Yeah,
That's easy.
yeah, and
Is there any apps, or is that an app as well? Like, kids are all using the apps nowadays. Look at me, I sound like a boomer. I mean, I'm in between the boomers and the Gen Zs or whatever, but
Well, it's interesting because I tend to just
The
go to
apps,
their
is there a good
website
app?
directly, and I would have to say I would assume that they have an app, but I know I just go right to the website because I'm typically when I'm doing research, I'm on my computer.
And I know you were talking about fast fashion earlier, and with Mo, you guys were talking about greenwashing. So I think that goes back to transparency as well. There's a lot of companies trying to play fast and loose with marketing.
Yep.
What about these big brands like the H&Ms, the Zaras that you would call fast fashion? Are they slowly getting the drift that consumers are not? Some consumers don't really think about it. So that's where the education is so important, raising awareness. Because if you don't know what the problem is, then your ignorance is bliss. Mm-hmm. But like, what do you think about like the big brands, like the biggest global brands of fashion? Are they starting to take this more seriously? Or are they still just looking at, they stuck in their ways,
It's interesting. I have a hard time talking about H&M only because I do give them a thumbs up because they invest money into tech and fiber science companies, and I have friends that have been awarded money to develop certain things, and I appreciate them for that. And the general public may or may not know that they're doing those types of things. However, on the flip side of that, they still have a long way to go with how much they pay their employees and the traceability of the humans that are a part of their supply chain. And when they do have external companies that they're fielding things out to, they're not at a place yet where they're able to trace at a level that is great. It's possibly going to get there.
So it's good, better, and best. It's just like with everything.
Yeah. So there are certain things
they're doing good, but they're not doing the best.
Yeah. Yeah. There are certain places they're doing good in, but then there are other places that they're so off base. But I would say I would still put them and Zara ahead of the Temus and the Shein because the Temus and the Shein, it's fast, breakable, and crap, and it's single-use clothes. And I'm using the term single-use clothes because they don't want you to send it back. They want it to be cheap enough for you to justify not sending it back and keeping it, maybe giving it to a friend or just throwing it out. And that means those are the people that might be buying like 30 to 80 items of clothes per year because they're just buying crappy stuff and they need it for the Instagram, and they're not a thoughtful customer. But I do feel even like some of my family members, I didn't realize that they didn't know how toxic Temu was because
I've never bought anything from them, thank God, but I've seen their ads everywhere and everyone talks about them. Like I have bought plenty from Amazon, but I'm also trying to shop local as much as possible.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, the convenience is nice sometimes when you're in a hurry.
Yeah.
But I'm always trying to buy I've bought biodegradable cups off Amazon from World Centric that are made out of corn that break down in the rain, for events in San Francisco that we've done.
Well,
so there's things you can buy on
Amazon,
so you can buy
and
sustainable stuff on Amazon.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like I have a love-hate
Amazon
relationship
gets a bad name.
with them.
Yeah.
And I have heard that they're meant to start cracking down on brands to be able to find some traceability within the brands that they're I don't know exactly
social
where
responsibility.
It's at. Yeah, like I know that there is conversation of them taking
That's
responsibility.
Good. It seems like that because I've even been getting wind that they're just getting more with the times. They don't want to be known as someone that's playing dirty.
Right, but I honestly
I
feel like there are still so many
there's so
people
much they can
selling
do
on there
that
are terrible.
Yeah. So you got to really use discernment when
Yep.
you're shopping on Amazon.
For sure.
But whenever you can, shop local.
Yep.
We got the local specialty running stores. Support them. Support the mom and pops and the people in your community that are supporting you. So what type of future projects and events do you have on the schedule?
The one thing I would like to see in the city of Miami is a healthy fabric library. And I'm doing my best to have the conversations with different organizations and thought leaders and funders, and I'm really wanting to see that here because when I was at FITM, we had something called Material Connection, and we got to see fiber and fabric that was made from kombucha and crushed glass and milk and coffee bean. And this introduction of fiber and fabric was, to me, like why I stayed working at FITM as the first like sustainable fashion teacher that they had at the school for 8 years. And I felt like I was consistently learning because the people that put together that particular part of the school were really great about going out and getting the best resources so the students could learn about it right away. And so I've befriended multiple people in that space, and I've known them for a long time. I've seen iterations of their business models, and I want something like that to exist here. Yeah.
Would there be mycelium apparel in the library?
Yes.
Because, I'm a mushroom scientist. You saw me speak last week at the Psychedelics Conference about mushroom science, about mycelium, and about how it could be a replacement for styrofoam.
Yes, and I was so happy that you brought that up because most people don't talk about the packing part of things that mushrooms could take over.
It's durable, it's flame resistant, and it is waterproof, and it can break down eventually. But it's they can make a lot of things out of mycelium. They're even talking about like building buildings with it, bricks and stuff, but even on Mars or on the moon, because it could be a material, the chitin as well. So the mycelium is underground. That's how the mushroom shares nutrients, and also that's where it gathers all of its life force, is 99.9% of the life form is underground, and then it pops up with the fruiting body, which is the mushroom. So the mycelium is like the root. But it's not. It's not a, sorry, we're breaking down the science here, but it's not a plant or an animal. Yeah. The fungi kingdom is in between plants and animals. It's its own kingdom. So a mushroom is not a vegetable or a fruit. It's a fungi.
Right.
And the above ground growth, the mushroom fruiting body, has a material in it called chitin, chitin, chitin. And that can also be used to make things like buildings, or like Elon Musk was talking about flash printing it for buildings on Mars. Or I know Stanford, I think it was, made a reishi house out in San Francisco where they took reishi mushroom mycelium and they made bricks out of it, and they demonstrated that they can make a whole home out of it. It's not able to scale up yet, but I mean, you can. I've also, Paul Stamets famously has a mushroom hat that's made out of mycelium. It looks like a leather hat. So I guess that could be also a faux leather.
Yes.
Would be made out of
Stella
mycelium.
McCartney has done that.
Yeah, with mushroom fibers. Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. So there's got to be some mushroom fibers in the library. What else is going to be in there?
Tree, fabric,
Pineapples?
flax,
Cactus?
Pineapple. Yeah, and it's interesting because there are brands with cactus that still need to use a little bit of poly in it. So I'm going to focus more on fabric than like the
But they can make like
materials.
also like padding out of the cactus, right? Like I know like they can make instead of using plastic for like your fruit in the grocery store, you know how they have it sliced up, they can use it like a cactus now to like the agave, I think, to make containers, biodegradable containers that they can use in the grocery store, because the plastics are ubiquitous. I mean, we were talking yesterday about microplastics, and I mean, there's going to be polyester in the library, but I mean, it's just so fascinating to me that no one thinks that, it's just 100% microplastics you're wearing, I don't even know what my pants are. I don't know what anything anymore. My watch is I read the other day that the rain gear you can wear, that you get. I mean, I'm not going to pick on them, but you go to like an outdoor store and you get this fancy rain jacket that's water repellent or sun repellent, and these chemicals are PFAS, the PFAS, the forever chemicals, or they're, chemicals that can get absorbed, because they said something online. They're doing research, and like wearing these water repellent things, that are not natural, they can get absorbed into your body, and they can cause, probably hormone disruption, cancer, bad stuff.
Yeah.
Versus cotton, which, there's not as much link to cotton, I don't think.
This might be a bad joke to share, but I was like, I wonder if there ever was a study that came out to prove that toxic chemicals in fabrics could make you fat. And I said this, and I was kind of being like
facetious.
Yeah, and then it turns out that PFAS are metabolism disruptors. So there is now studies that is the case, but I don't know to what extent yet.
Well, that makes sense. Whether it's people have like immune dysfunction too, or like Graves' disease and all these things that are forget how you call it, thyroid, and that affects your weight.
Yeah, like autoimmune
disease.
people that have different autoimmune diseases and like my hypersensitivity, we have a totally different experience of the world than people that have no reactions to anything. Like for me to go into a mall, let's say in Macy's, I tried to work in a Macy's. I lasted 1 week. I was so sick from the off-gassing, from the mattresses, from the perfumes. Then I went on the clothing floor, was sick there too.
Wow.
I couldn't be anywhere in the entire store, any of the floors, without having like migraines, and it fills my stomach up with gas, and it just makes me feel
I
like
heard
I'm
this
going to
poor
throw
story
up.
one time. My friend who's a perfume expert, he's got a natural perfume line in Maui.
Yeah.
It's all like, organic.
Yep.
It's called Pure Presence. And he knew someone who worked in like a Macy's or one of these department stores in the perfume section for like 20 or 30 years. And they had facial paralysis. And it was like directly linked to like being exposed to all these perfumes all day long that are not natural. And they do disrupt, and it cause like, I don't know exactly what the medical term is, but their sense of, muscle function was gone, so.
I didn't even
At
know
like
that.
50 or whatever, like that's too early to have these issues. And you notice like, the woman who eats all the raw vegetables and she's 80 and she looks like she's 30, because she's eating all raw, and they're not putting all these, fragrances, in the nutrition industry, the word fragrance is a hidden dirty term for undisclosed, no transparency in what it actually is.
Yep.
In fact,
Same
the
in body care.
Have you heard of the EWG, the
Yep.
Environmental Working Group? Yeah,
Yep.
they're doing
Oh
the
my
Lord's
gosh.
work.
I use them for everything, and I've been
The
using
Dirty
them
Dozen,
for
the Clean
12
15.
years. Yeah.
Yep. I'm a big fan of theirs out of Washington, D.C.
Yep.
Yep, nonprofit lobbyist group that's fighting for change, and they got things like Red 40 banned in California, or it's now banned in the U.S.
Yep.
It's going to take 4 years to get it out of the food supply, I heard the other day.
Well, it's more than zero because it wasn't happening, and now it
wasn't
is.
happening.
So,
Yeah, but Europe didn't allow it.
Well,
Other
there's
places.
so many things in Europe that they don't allow that it doesn't make any sense to me that we're not following them as quickly as I wish
notice
that we
too,
would.
when you eat food over there, it's a lot easier on your system.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So it's just startling, what people, it's so important that we talk about healthy fashion. We haven't had this conversation before on Sneaker Impact News. So future events and projects coming up that you want to share with us before we talk about other things?
Well, interestingly, the month of April is Earth Day week month, and it's also Fashion Revolution weekday month. And Remake typically does do multiple events in different cities. There will be events coming up in the month of April. I don't know what they are yet, but we're in conversations with a few different groups. So I'll be posting them on my Instagram.
So Instagram's the best place to stay in touch with you. I know
Yep.
we're going to share a couple of your social links. I got your Taryn Hipwell on Instagram.
Yes.
TarynHipwell. And TarynHipwell.com. So you have your own website.
Yep.
Okay. Some videos on there, some links, and a link to your book.
I think I'm going to be putting another video or two in the next few weeks. I don't have...
Well, share this one for sure. I'll get you some
Yeah.
social clips and I'll get you the full length.
Oh,
So,
perfect.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Yeah, because I am stepping into wanting to take a next step with my consulting, with my business, to open it up to more people.
Mm-hmm.
I had been focusing on brands and businesses here in Miami, but now that I'm starting to branch out, I want to have the bigger conversation. And I love that you had Marissa here last week, and getting to see, like, Martu came down from New York, and the New York, LA, Miami conversation, just continuing to stir that pot and get all the information together and have like a positive
It's a community.
impact. Yeah.
Yeah. Many different experts are all contributing and also students coming up.
Yes,
So do you see yourself staying in Miami for a while?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got some more work
and
to do here?
Yeah, I had tried to live closer to my family when I first got to Miami, so that's why I've been in the state of Florida for 7 years. I tried Port Charlotte and Tampa and St. Pete, and my brother's up in Ormond Beach, and I basically lived where all of them lived. But yeah, Miami just kept calling me, and now that I'm down here and setting up shop and getting my roots in and my cilia-ing, I'm finally, I want to start here and build it out. Yeah.
Do you have a home base down here for your lab or for where do you work out of?
I work out of my home. I'm in North Bay Village, which I love because
Oh, I'm right by North Bay Village. That's where I swim every day at the Normandy Pool.
Oh, nice.
But I live about 2 miles away, but I'm I'm within a stone's throw of you.
All I know is my whole backyard is the ocean, and it
You're
looks
in the
like
bay.
a lake. Yeah.
North Bay Village is called what do they call it? The island in the bay or something? Or it's like right in the middle of
Yeah.
Biscayne Bay. And there's all these like causeways connecting it.
Yep.
It's like the gem in the bay or something they call it.
I don't
It's a
even
very
know what
cool
the name
community.
is, but I just tell everybody I live on an island. And
You do.
whenever I go home, it feels like I'm in a different city. I feel like I'm going back to my lake house. I sit by the water and get to chill out for,
It's
a
not
bit.
South Beach.
No, it's not
It's
South
about
Beach.
6 miles away from South Beach. That's to
Yeah.
the south.
And it's got this very zen atmosphere to it. And
Mm-hmm.
and I know you're going to ask me about things that I love to do.
Well,
We
that's the
have,
next
like-
question.
So
What are your
there's-
other passions outside of fashion?
We have free yoga on Wednesdays and Saturdays. I shouldn't be sharing that with everybody because it's my favorite and I don't want it to get too populated, but I
Well,
love my
If we
yoga
blow this
teacher.
podcast up, that's a good thing. So,
Yeah. Allison, you are a star. She is one of the most down-to-earth people, and it's great to have that time and decompression.
is it outdoor?
It is. I love my yoga outside, on grass, on cement, on sand, wherever, as much as I can get outside. And then my other passion is fashion. Oh, sorry. My other passion.
Fashion is always the first thing.
My other passion is dance. I
Okay.
love swing dance, salsa, bachata. I can do kizomba and zouk a little bit, and I kind of let my dance take me where it's going to take me. And I will say, whenever I go to a different city, that's the most fun way to start getting connected with people. And I love like my dancer friends, and I even have dancer friends that I had known from New York 25 years ago that are now down here in Miami also.
Sure. The dance scene's big down here.
Yeah.
One
it
of my
is.
guy friends is a salsa instructor. I actually have 2 salsa instructor friends. I've only learned like the 101, and it was like 10 years ago, and I haven't done it since. So you'll have to send me the link for the dance classes and because I'm I got that gringo vibe, where I'm like a little clumsy. I'm stepping on people's toes and stuff, but I can learn. So that's awesome. Those are really great. It's so good to have you in the community and to have you as part of Sneaker Impact's family now. We're going to have you back on again in the future to catch up in a couple of months or a year.
That sounds
Whenever you're
awesome.
ready. And hopefully you can help us with our projects here. I know you and Mo have been chatting a bunch. We're about to go on a tour. We have about 25 minutes left before the facility closes. But what inspiring message would you like to leave the Sneaker Impact audience with today?
I'm going to go with, when you wear your values, you get to create a different world just by default. And what that looks like to me is, my value is I want to reduce chemicals and to get as many brands to suck less as possible. And when I do get to invest in a brand that I just absolutely adore, it's almost like there's this extra part of, there are going to be positive benefits from investing in the brands that I love. And I'm going to go back to, everybody has different values, and everybody can find different brands that relate to your values. So if you care about the oceans, you could find ones that have less water, less microfibers, less...
Recovered ocean plastics.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 4Ocean, and I know a bunch of great companies are using ocean. Adidas even has used, they made a shoe from ocean plastic.
Yep. Or like if you care about cows and you want to have vegan clothes and whatever it is, like take ownership of what you care about and see how
Wear your
you can-
values.
Yeah.
And suck less.
And suck less.
I
yes.
remember when I was coming in from getting a coffee earlier, you said something about you want brands to suck less or something.
I want
think
brands to
I've
suck
never
less.
heard
I
that
want
before.
shoppers to suck less. I just want
haven't
everybody to
heard that
suck a
one.
little less. And it's not like a big
That's a good take-home
thing.
message, but it's funny, but it's also true.
Yeah.
But it's also like we're also celebrating like small victories.
Yeah.
And we don't have to be so pessimistic. Like there's a lot of optimism.
Yeah.
Like people are all thinking that, Miami's going to be underwater and stuff. Maybe in a couple hundred years, maybe even in 50, we don't know. But like in the meantime, let's like make it the best place because it's our home. And let's take care of it, and let's care about it. Let's care about each other. Let's stop honking the horn at each other all the time. Let's start using our turn signals. These are pretty things your mom taught you, along with brushing your teeth, and let's start thinking about what we're putting on our bodies, what we're spending our money on, because your dollar, I say this all the time, is how you vote. When you vote every day, where do you shop for your food? Where do you shop for your clothes? What type of media do you consume? Are you consuming Sneaker Impact News, or are you consuming, some junk tabloid news?
Well, I kind of like mindless TV too,
Yeah, there's a
but
time and
I
place for it
also
as
like
well.
my TEDx's
There's
and
a time
things
and
like
place
that
for
too.
it. Yeah, exactly. There's a time and place. I like my stand-up comedy. That's something
Yes.
I like. I love stand-up
Yes.
comedy. Yeah, so. But that's awesome, Taryn. So thank you so much again for coming today. It's been an enlightening conversation. The time always goes so quick. There's always more questions I have, but we'll continue that for chapter 2.
That sounds amazing. And thank you for having me here. Thank you for what you guys are up to. And I'm going to pitch again. Make the fiber fluff into luggage.
Okay, we'll do that. And guys, check out TarynHipwell.com and Taryn on LinkedIn and Instagram. We're going to put all the stuff down in the description, and she's got an article here about that she was on Shout Out Miami, and they tell you all about her background as well. So we really enjoyed getting to know you today, Taryn, and thank you again for this opportunity.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, we'll see you on the next episode.
Yay.
Be well.